everybody is there to share and grow and bring the other team up, right? If not, you stunt your growth, and you've got to be able to share what you know and enable everybody to make decisions and to, if you make the wrong decision, we're going to pivot and keep on moving. It's not a, get your hand slapped by making the wrong decision. So that's kind of the culture. It's bring everybody up with us.
Hey everyone, and thanks for listening to another episode of DIB Innovators. Today I'm speaking with Marti McCurdy, owner and CEO of Spirit Electronics, a veteran and women-owned business that provides supply chain solutions and electronic component distribution. Marti, thanks for chatting with me today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. So to start off, what a background. Thank you for your service, by the way, as a veteran, a fellow veteran. So appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Can you share about, your journey from the Air Force and then how you found yourself now as, a rare but unique and awesome breed of, woman leading a aerospace and defense company?
Oh, that's a that's a long loaded question there. I'll try to wrap it up in the cliff notes. So basically, I grew up in a very small urban Amish community in central Pennsylvania, and I knew I needed out, so I enlisted. And I was 17, and I had to get my parents to sign for me, and I had to wait a year till I turned 18 and graduated high school, and I left. That was my ticket out. But honestly, it was probably, unbeknownst to me at the time, the best decision I ever made, obviously, because I went into the military, spent 6 years there working on electronics. That's where my background comes from jamming radar systems and things like that. And then just really did kind of stay in the business. And I'm sure if my parents were on the call, they would, say it was because I have a problem with authority that I run my own business because I don't listen well. But I think you have to have a little bit of a bit of a staunch, maybe bullheaded approach to take the big steps that you do to jump into business and deal with all of the issues that come. And everybody always wants to talk about your victories and how well the company does. And we can certainly do all of that because Spirit's done well. But, we make mistakes and there's hurdles along the way. And, so I never want to paint this rosy picture that everything is perfect. It isn't. We make mistakes. We pick ourselves up, we keep going, but it just really all started with, being in the military and giving you that discipline behind it.
Yeah. And so then why, how did you get into Spirit? What was the avenue that brought you to that?
After I got out of the military, I stayed in, actually, my background became ultrasound specifically, which I still love to this day. And that's really falls into like non-destructive testing through ultrasound. So very similar to women having sonograms, looks exactly the same, except I was inspecting materials and metals and bridges and aircraft engines and these kinds of things. And really what has transpired was we had new materials come to the marketplace. So the piezoelectric materials and films, and that took a frequency band from maybe 25 megahertz up to now 100 megahertz. And that then introduced and ushered in the microelectronics world. And so when that happened, now all of a sudden, ultrasound became a must-have in the semiconductor space. And that gave me the luxury to travel to Asia for, 2.5 years and cover that area. And then I decided I could handle that from California. So I ended up moving there and got really involved with the back-end test side of semiconductors. And just if you're in Silicon Valley, it's a little bit of a, by osmosis, you kind of get into the semiconductor space. So that's what I did. And then after the last sale of the company that I was with, I decided Spirit was my next venture. And it was a small distribution channel. And I didn't know anything about distribution, and I will not pretend to know much about it right now, but we've had a great 7-year run of providing a very boutique-ish, unique structure so that our military and space customers we call it one PO, one supplier. We literally are vertically integrated to do everything from an ASIC design through foundry services, all the way through assembly. We're very strong in test, all the screen and qualification to bring a product to market for our military or space customers. And then we have a circuit card assembly line. We can build the board for you as well. So complete turnkey vertical if you choose to use it all.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so where are you finding, who are your primary customers? What programs are you working on with the Department of Defense?
We do play in all of the environments with the major primes heavily. We have a large program with the F-35, the F-15, F-22. We obviously, have a lot of, replenishment of supplies that are being used in Ukraine and things like that. But we also put a very strong emphasis on new space. We're very intrigued by what's happening there. So we play in what we call the tier twos. And some of the super fun stuff was we got to see the Dream Chaser by Sierra Nevada that's, going to ferry people along. And we get to see, some of the data collection that's happening with some of the payload that we get to be part of on the satellite systems for, like the simplest thing is your internet when you fly, right? So we really like to even bring in, we have a charitable arm called Spirit Gives. We like to bring in the kids from that program to try to teach them a little bit about the satellites we're on or the programs we're on or the jets that we're on so that they can kind of put the real world application in link with the product that we sell so that they can possibly look into the future and go, hey, I want to do that too, so.
That's great. Yeah. Taking advantage of the youth, which is tough, when you're running a company to find that bandwidth. So, we'll come back to the business side, but for you personally, what were some of the biggest challenges as you started a company? Entrepreneur life is difficult, can be very rewarding, but, what were some of the, biggest challenges and how you overcame them?
I would say that my issues are everybody's issues, and usually that's cash flow. So the first thing that you have to overcome is cash flow, right? So luckily I have enough of a network connections. I bought Spirit. It was totally upside down and I didn't really get all the details from the seller, clearly. And so at day 31, I couldn't make payroll and I was broke because I paid cash. And so I literally had to call up somebody and ask for $250,000 and they never asked me why and put it in my checking account the next day. So it helps to have a strong network and cash flow is always the thing, right? So you're always working to make sure you have enough cash. I'm not big on debt, so we don't carry debt and I like to have a cushion so that I can sleep well at night. But I think my bankers would like me to have some leverage, but I prefer not to do that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that was an eye-opener.
It's an eye-opener, yeah.
So you guys aren't venture-backed. You are basically completely bootstrapped, minus that one.
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, well, that was 7 years ago. They've been paid back pretty well. But, we really are, first off, Spirit has an incredibly strong team. And also they came along for the ride. They didn't really know much about the back-end test, but they did know the distribution piece. So between all of us, we've kind of built this company up from 4 or 5 people now to 50 some people. And the director level that's been with me the whole time, they're incredible to run the company. Honestly, I just kind of try to pretend I have the reins, but I really don't.
So teamwork, obviously important. Your team, what are the keys to, as you've led this company on a culture perspective? How have you enabled that? What's important to you?
Yeah, I've been asked that before. And I think I look at that as, I do study some things, continually because you're always getting employees that are, younger and coming out of different, generations. And you got to figure out how to manage them, right? Everybody wants to talk about the Gen Xers or the whoever, the Gen Zs and all that. You got to figure out how do you manage them differently than your own peer group. And it requires some study. It doesn't immediately come by osmosis. So I think the team is very strong on bringing people into our culture, and it's an enablement culture, right? So there's good discipline from everybody, and that probably is where I got that from the military. But everybody is there to share and grow and bring the other team up, right? If not, you stunt your growth, and you've got to be able to share what you know and and enable everybody to make decisions and to, if you make the wrong decision, we're going to pivot and keep on moving. It's not get your hand slapped by making the wrong decision. So that's kind of the culture. It's bring everybody up with us.
So have you seen with that, you're a woman in aerospace, as I mentioned earlier, there aren't many of you. I've talked to a couple, which are, it's fantastic stories. How has that been? Has it been interesting? Has it been, blind to it? Or are you like, this is an interesting challenge?
Well, it's all I know. So, it's from the beginning. But I believe that all along I've had some of the best mentors in the business. And I've learned from some of the best PhDs and doctors at NASA and in the Silicon Valley. So I do know that, when I go to a conference and I speak and, 4 or 5 of the other women that are there, we all know each other for the last 20 years. And we're basically, like specks and pepper in a sea of salt. Everybody's, 500 men in dark suits. And then there's us. So we realize that people might know us and we don't know them because you're just, a standout from the oddity.
So for, companies in defense often hear that it's challenging working with the government or working with primes, a lot of requirements, compliance. How do you view that? Has it been pretty smooth or?
I just had this conversation at lunch with a client, just the easy things as simple as your cage code in SAM, right? SAM.gov. I think that as a company, we've been in it forever. And so it comes naturally. My team is very well versed and very educated in all of these things that are required to be in this space. And I know, like, if we look at anything like it's a competitor, like we call them the big A's, Aero, Avnet from the distribution channel, they cover everything, commercial, industrial, all of these other arenas where we are very focused and got blinders on that we are in the aerospace and defense market and we run deep there. So I think when you have high touch and you have a single focus on this market segment, I think you cover it well. And to even down drill that a little bit is that we have specific teams for every major prime, Lockheed, Boeing, Raytheon, L3, BAE, all of that, so that that team can hone in on all of those specific skills versus being versed in all of the primes, right? So we have dedicated teams for each one.
That's a great technique. Yeah, because each one, I'm sure, is very different.
Very different, yes.
In the nuances of how they, run business. I chuckle as Sam. I was, for us, same thing. The cage code. I'm just trying to change my address, a business address. I think it took me 4 months by the time I could figure it out. Because I'm not doing full time, and when an email comes in, it's like
yes, all the notarized letters and yeah.
And once I got my address, it was just that we had to verify it and keep going. I'm like, oh, please.
Yes, yes, I know. But yes, we're deep in, right? Like we've got massive CMMC compliancy to level 2. So our, cybersecurity is huge. We're going for our trusted to handle classified work right now. And we handle ITAR and export controls and all these things. And really, if you're in this market segment of aerospace and defense, it just comes with the territory, right? Mm-hmm. So I've got good people.
Oh, that's great. So as materials are changing, different technology to come aboard, how do you foster that innovation spirit and advanced technology within Spirit?
That's very challenging. It's a great question. When you're in the Silicon Valley area, I call it collisions, right? Like you can collide at lunch or hear things, or you can basically get about any resource in the semiconductor space that you want or need. But Arizona is very immature in that area. So it's a lot of lifting and a lot of education, bringing people in that are, educated in a specific technology or whatever. It doesn't come easy and it doesn't happen overnight. So one of our biggest challenges is right now in Arizona is that we can't hire enough people. So we're ready to bring in that next level of engineering or C-suite, the company's going in that direction from a growth trajectory, but it's difficult to get. So we just keep, grinding with the core team and keep raising the bar with them, and they keep coming to the table and delivering. So, but it's not easy. It takes its toll some days.
How have you found it? Just kind of made me think of another conversation I had with workforce challenges. As you look at education systems, everyone's going to college, doesn't even matter what the degree is, vice. There are critical, skill sets that are needed in a company like yours. Have you involved yourself with, workforce programs in Arizona or elsewhere to try to enable that?
We have. So there's a couple of programs in Arizona. So obviously ASU is a big school and we've talked with them, but Grand Canyon University is, just maybe 5 miles from us. And we deal with their team to put together curriculum that's very specific to us and what we need. And also the likes of TSMC and Intel are doing the same things in much bigger scope than we are. And then Maricopa Community Colleges, Leah Palmer is running that, and they've literally incorporated as semiconductor courses and like pre-apprenticeship, crash courses, and Arizona is absolutely, headed in the direction of basically, I always use the language, it's another Silicon Valley. And so we're tied pretty tight with Mayor Kate Gallega. She's doing amazing things there, and all of the major tech companies and some of the White House staff and us meet to try to resolve these workforce issues. And a lot of it is coming from the educational directive. And the White House is funding 5 locations in the US, Phoenix luckily being one of them. But you're still years away from, filling these positions where right now we would fill 10 positions if we could find the resources. So it's painful.
Is it? So do you think it's working? I mean, this has been going on for a while.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while.
Maybe not these last programs, but do you think it's starting to take hold?
I think it's been going on in a while in other locations. I'm not sure how much Arizona has focused on it until 5 years ago when TSMC came in, and Intel's obviously been there a while, but they're now building more foundries. And there's just been a real spotlight on Phoenix and the metro area. And that's where I think, Chris Camacho is the CEO of our Greater Phoenix Economics Council, doing a magnificent job. And him and Kate Gallega and all of these people that can make those directive choices to put Arizona in the front of the semiconductor eyeballs and get people interested to come there. I think they're doing a great job, because none of us are going to be able to be in a position to do that. We can hire, a couple people and bring them there, but they really are putting this major ecosystem for semiconductors together in the Phoenix metro.
And there's been a lot of semiconductor movement, right?
Yeah.
From the White House. How has that affected your business?
We're playing in the space. Obviously the CHIPS Act money went to 7 companies, the lion's share of it. So we're just trying to stay close and try to keep everything in par, I guess, with everything that's happening with CHIPS Act. We're participating, let's say.
Also, security is important. You mentioned some of the cybersecurity, but supply chain security. Where are you in the supply chain? I know you work for the primes. Do you have subs that work for you then?
Rarely. We have suppliers, but we're lucky enough we brought everything that we do in-house. That's kind of my, control issues, I suppose. But we brought everything vertically in-house through either by natural growth or through, we did some acquisitions last year.
Do you find that supply chain security is an issue with the primes? Are you working with them, or is it something of concern, or you haven't seen much of it?
No, we're authorized. We deal only directly with, the manufacturer, or, we are controlling the assembly and test and things, or the design. And we have exclusive access to the TI foundries for our customer base. So it's a tight, controlled supply chain. We have counterfeit mitigation in place, but really we don't see that at all in our world. And we only deal with the US.
That is great. You pulled it all under one umbrella. Some of those challenges.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, then for you, where do you see, Spirit Electronics going? Like, what are the opportunity spaces out there? And then how do you see yourself, growing with your company?
Yeah, we've doubled every year over the last 7 years. So growth continues this year as well. So it's champagne problems we have of can't get a big enough building, can't get equipment fast enough, can't hire enough people. So, anybody would trade me for these issues. And what we really see is just trying to be, a more complete and robust part of the business that we have now to grow into a little bit bigger arena there from where we are right now, from a manufacturing standpoint, from, how many design wins we get, that kind of thing, because the need is there. We just can't fill it right now from a size perspective.
More of a capacity issue than.
Yeah, we have the capacity. We just don't have the human resource. That's the pain point. Like, we should be running 3 shifts right now, and I can barely keep 1 shift fully manned, right? Because there's just we need some resources. So I'll put the plug out there. Anybody looking for a new job, give us a call.
There you go. Well, that'll be fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. That's all we have time for right now. But You're doing some awesome stuff. If folks want to follow along, your research, your work, how's the best way for them to do that?
I think we have a lot of social media going. I don't really manage that, but with spiritelectronics.com is our website, and then spiritgives.org is our foundation. And I'm pretty sure we're strong on LinkedIn as well under Spirit Electronics, and some Facebook activity out there as well. But you can find it all on our website.
Great. And I meant to go back. This is real quick. Spirit Gives. Tell me a little bit more about that. I think that's enough.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We wanted to, I had a great childhood growing up. I'm a big adventure seeker, and my parents really taught us that, we didn't have much money, but if we could either pedal or ski it or, self-propel somehow, then we would do whatever activity it was. So I've been lucky enough to, have great family, and I wanted to pass that on to kids that might not have those opportunities. And so we reach out in our local community, and I think we're in our 3.5 years in helping local kids in our community kind of get out there and have some adventures.
Oh, that's fantastic. Very good. Well, again, thank you very much. And it's been a great conversation. I appreciate it. And let's stay in touch.
Very good, David. Thanks so much.
Thanks
for having me.